Climate change is the new name for global warming. It was quickly rebranded after a few inconvenient graphs stubbornly refused to show any evidence of warming at all for the past 20 years. But no one can argue that the climate is changing. There it goes again. The science is complicated and it divides opinion. Greta Thunberg, for example, was recently criticised by another leading climate change expert, Meatloaf. He said that she'd been brainwashed. Greta's parents are currently working on her response. But despite criticism from Professor Meatloaf and others, there's no doubt that the climate change debate now has an engaging new champion. And I was delighted to recently jet off to Sweden and meet Greta's teacher, Sergia Iceberg. Miss Iceberg, you was Greta's form tutor and is now an inspiration to millions. You must be very proud of her. What was it like to teach?
I can't really remember her, to be honest.
Right.
It's been a while since she turned up.
Is that it?
Well, as you can see from my caption, I'm also no expert on climate change, but I will try and explain what's going on in a language that we can all understand, unless you're a brummie.
The first problem is the real experts themselves can't always agree. Some say that we're doomed if we don't instantly stop breathing because human beings are total bastards. Others are a bit more optimistic and say we'll all be alright if we just ditch our gas-guzzling cars and spend the rest of our lives standing at bus stops. Electric vehicles, of course, will definitely help save the planet, unless we have to charge them up, because that involves electricity. Electricity which still mainly comes from power plants which burn coal. There's more than 2,500 of them across the world. In an effort to solve this dilemma, America have now introduced electric car charging points, like these, powered by diesel generators. You couldn't make it up, could you?
So if you absolutely have to travel, for instance to get to the pub or to the benefits office, by far the greenest way to do it is to buy an electric car to show off, park it permanently on your drive and then walk.
Or of course, if you live near a canal, like me, you could travel by canoe, at least as far as the nearest lock, and if you don't live by water, don't worry, you soon will. But bear in mind that most canoes these days are made of plastic, which means they can get tangled up with penguins, shopping trolleys and other wildlife. So if you do buy a canoe to save the planet, make sure you leave it at home. Plastic, of course, is the new evil in our world. It's basically Hitler, only more convenient. And when it comes to fighting climate change, every little helps. For example, the government recently said that we can no longer have straws made out of plastic. We've got to have them made out of paper, even though they're more expensive. At the same time, in an ingenious twist, the government also stopped making our money out of paper and started making it out of plastic. But don't despair, there is a way to get round the system and save money. Because I discovered that you can now roll up a 10 quid note and you can use it as a straw. Other scientists reckon that climate change is nothing to do with transport. It's all down to cows farting. The latest research shows that a single cow fart can increase the air temperature by up to 7 degrees, especially if you're trapped in a lift with it. Luckily, cows tend not to use lifts too often, but it can happen, so check first. And of course, cows' farts are still a danger to polar bears, who, even from the other side of the world, have a very keen sense of smell. To stop this potential disaster, some claim that we all need to become vegans. But there is a problem with their logic, because even if I start eating nothing but lentils, this cow can still fart. Whereas if I kill it and eat it, it can't. And surely the bigger question here is whether a life eating lentils and Linda McCartney sausages is a life worth saving. Others believe that wind are a problem. It's the solution. Wind farms are now all the rage. Trouble is, it ain't always windy, so they're inefficient and often grind to a halt, which is a problem if you're halfway through charging your electric canoe. But once again, the scientists seem to have overlooked the obvious solution. Get the cows to fart on the turbines to make them spin. Job done. Meanwhile, the EU's solution to climate change was brilliant in its simplicity. They passed laws making all the air dryers and all the hoovers half power. So now, we all spend twice as long drying our hair and hoovering, which puts a major strain on the national grid. All of which is fine by the EU, because all our electricity companies are now owned by France and Germany. When it comes to climate change, we all like to do our bit. This extension lead, for instance, it runs out of my kitchen window, over the garden wall, and into my neighbour's outside plug socket. I use it for my telly, my microwave, my outside patio heater, and of course my foot spa. So as you can imagine, that makes me incredibly energy efficient. Don't cost me a penny. In fact, I am to be carbon neutral by next Thursday. But in a way, this does highlight one of the dilemmas of the climate change debate globally. Because it's all very well us being careful, but sometimes we have to make extra sacrifices just to compensate for the reckless overconsumption of our neighbours. Some say, however, that whatever we do, we're still doomed. Why? Because the sun's solar activity controls our planet, and CO2 levels have been rising for millions of years, since dinosaurs ruled the planet. Fuck off. So is this problem bigger than all of us? We all remember the story of King Canute, who thought he could stop the tide coming in. Can mere mortals like us really push back the rising sea levels or alter the entire planet's behaviour? Well, one scientist recently calculated that if we spend 1,000 trillion tax dollars on climate change projects over the next 100 years, we might, just might, impact the Earth's temperature by 0.01%, about as noticeable as a cow fart in an hurricane. And in the meantime, of course, a few folk with their fingers in green pies would be getting extremely rich. Never mind the oil and tobacco companies. Green is now the world's biggest business, especially if you can get the right scare messages out there. So what's the truth of it? Is it the world's biggest crisis, or the world's greatest scam? Only time will tell. Most scientists do agree on one thing though, that to solve the problem, it'll need lots more funding for scientists. Well, I hope you found that video enlightening. Strange, ain't it? All this obsession with saving the planet for the next generation, and I've yet to meet anybody under the age of 20 who knows how to switch off a fucking light. Ta-ra a bit.